Jeff again here. Get the lighting stuff. Got the sunlight here. I'm trying to get the sunlight just the right time and the right thing. It's got too much sun, but hey, this is good lighting. Hey, it's better than doing it at home, um, and decent background here, so not boring background. Um, the topic for this video in this chapter is about being the best. How Americans believe they're the best. Okay, um, and and I've come through this having been through, I guess, I'll have to say I mean, I've had, earned awards from high school. I had three high school, my final year, senior year, I had three high school awards. Um, Even speaking at the graduation is an award kind of thing to be able to speak to the graduating class and having a special award of like being the teaching assistant for like languages where you don't get teaching assistants when no one has to be a teaching assistant in language classes in high school. I mean, it's just like, you got that. Um, so there's a whole thing of that. And what you've got is you've got a gotta hide the people here because we're trying to do this. Um, you got you've got the so I've had that, and I've got been in lots of honor societies at all the universities and all the colleges and universities and grad schools and lots of awards and stuff. And lots of fellowships at the end, and fellowships that they're granted as awards and stuff, and employee of the this and that and all that. And so who's who of America. And I've had a lot of those things. So I've kind of been in the case where I've been been have been awarded for a lot of things, and so it's easy for me to think I'm the best in some topics. But there are topics where I don't know, and I'll be very careful, saying those. I'll be very careful in saying those things. Um, I'm kind of hiding these people here. I'm trying to kind of what do you got? I got hiding these people. I'm trying to GDPR, right? So, um, the uh, the thing with the thing with, and that's kind of my background. And so, but I know that I usually say that I will not talk about projects. So I got to hide these people. I'm trying to hide them. Maybe I just need to turn this around here a little bit and do this, whatever. So it's kind of frustrating being in a restaurant. I can see myself backwards. I'm watching myself backwards. It's kind of weird. Um, but the and so, but I know that on topics that I don't know, I won't talk about them. I just won't. And the things I do know about, I will talk about, so we can learn from the experience and do it. Whereas a lot of people in other cultures, you know, they they don't like it when you talk about things because they consider it as bragging. It's kind of weird, but it's kind of, well, I see that as weird, but they don't, and they see it as kind of weird. So this is kind of the thing it is. Um, so it's and you see this thing also. You can think I'm trying to think through this, Sarah, as I'm going through this. The what you've got as well is look at how Americans are, where they come to certain countries, or they come and they know things, and they're just very bold about it. They're very bold about topics, and they will say, we do. They'll be very, very bold about it. I mean, this is a very typical thing. Look at Trump. Trump is a great example of this. Trump is he's a great example of this thing. So, so it's kind of like this is, and Trump is just one example, and maybe an exaggerated example, but it's true. So, this comes into play when you've got people that are not that way, and where they're not. Americans are also they're achievers and even overachievers. Okay, so they will go above and beyond, and above and beyond in the sense they will just overachieve things because they believe in the results and doing results and do it, and they believe that they're really good in doing that, and they're believing that they're believing that they are the best in the world on some things, and um, on various topics. Now, sometimes they might even show it on the topics they're not good in, which is not a good thing. It's not a good thing. I'll say that. It's not good. It's not good when you got somebody that kind of proclaims that I got this here. So I'll try to hide any people, try to get that their faces in this. I don't want to deal with that. Um, but the uh, you've got if you've got anybody that's actually dealing with that and having the trying to say they got that, that's going to cause problems. But it's actually going to problems if they do know their topic. And so this is kind of frustrating at times to when Americans are working with people that are that don't want to do that. And if you have an American that, especially an achiever American, who's really good at things and works with people that are don't really care about the results or don't care about achieving, that is a tough thing to deal with. That's a really tough one because the American is expecting to have, people that are up to snuff to do it. And they will expecting people to be up to snuff and they will call it people and they'll say, well, you need to be up to snuff or why are you on the project? Why are you even on the project if you're not even able to do the thing? So this can be a really painful experience. This kind of topic is one that's the hardest one to deal with. It's one of the harder ones to deal with. Is why are people on projects? Because Americans will put people on projects with that skill set. So we already mentioned that in the leadership management one, but this actually comes out too in the whole topic of um, in the whole topic of being good and best, and this comes out in the whole employee of the month thing. Why does I'm at McDonald's here right now, so I'm doing this because they got good lighting here. So it's not the food I'm here for; it's the lighting in the background. Okay, so um, but the why do Americans have the employee of the month thing? Why do they do it? Because it's to show that there are examples, and once you have an example, that example becomes the model on which the other one follows, and that's why Americans are really into the following a model who's good, because that's the person that they want to be like. Okay, and I got people in my life, that ever since I was in high school, junior high school, that I want to be like them, and I became like them. Um, and the result we've seen in my resume and CV. It's my curriculum vitae. That's the result. And I've become like them, and very much so to the extent that I have replicated what they've done, and it's that way because they were that way. So this is the whole model approach, and McDonald's is kind of the employee of the month is that way. Now I could tell you, and read my book, read my article on working with the French. The French don't like that. That just doesn't work. It's just working. Employee of the month is not the thing to try to use with them. So you got to do it a completely different way. And the Germans are really they're not into like people telling about their background, how good are the things, because that's just like they'll see you're bragging. And the Americans say, well, yeah, I'm telling you what we can do, and let's do it. Let's just do it this way and not reinvent another wheel. Let's not create another wheel and to reinvent it another 25th time, where it's already been done 25 times. So this can cause conflict because Americans have no shame in saying how good they are on things that they're good at. Okay. And other cultures have, it's shameful to actually say that you're good at something. See, and it's actually shameful to actually be on the pedestal for having be good at something. This is a cultural thing. It's a cross-cultural thing, and this can cause all kinds of conflict. All kinds of conflict. That's why I'm doing this video. This video is to help actually deal with potential conflict and help you navigate through that. Uh, so Americans are really good at being bold and being very convincing and persuasive. And other cultures are not good at that. Okay, they're just not. Um, I'm not saying all the time, and I'm not saying that there are not people that can't do it that are from other cultures. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that there are cultures that are just not good at doing it. And so, Americans will just say, "Well, you need to get your act together. Okay, you need to get your act together and do it because you're not good at this." They'll be very calling out. Whereas other cultures say, "I can't say this kind of thing because it's not appropriate." And Americans say, "Well, no, that's not true." There are other words for that too. I'm not going to say those here on a video and a recording. Um, but see what I mean? It's really important to when you're mixing to understand Americans, you have to understand how they function. And of course, I'm seeing Americans in general, and I'm seeing Americans that are have that kind of vision and that have that ability to be really good at things and then say they're really good at things because they are good at things. Um, and Americans can have no problem of being good at many different things. Okay, if possible. Whereas I know a lot of Europeans, they want to be good at one thing and only that one thing, and they want to stick to that one thing, and they will only get it if they've been laid off for a job, they only want to get that job again. I know lots of people like that. Whereas I just don't understand that. I just say, hey, there's not a job one. I feel I can do it. I'll learn from it. I've done it. I've done it many times. And that's why my resume is kind of full of all these effort in industries. And I call myself the Jeff of all trades because I can do a lot of Jeff of all trades and industries because done it because I've had to do it. And I have no fear of doing that. But there are topics I won't do. I won't do that. I won't do financial accountant. Just not my thing. Okay. Don't ask me to do it unless you're really desperate because you're gonna want me to do that. Or drawing drawing pictures and stuff, it's not my thing. Just so if you want just a basic drawing with a stick man, like in Hangman, a stick man with a golf kind of club with a foot and stuff, and that's all I'll do for you. But I'm not going to draw a pretty picture. There are things I just won't do, or cooking. It's not my thing. Okay. But things I know I can do and I will do, I'll do it. But if the things I won't do, I won't do, and I won't try to if I know that I can't do it. Okay, so that's kind of the thing. But so you got to deal with Americans that are kind of in this kind of thing that know how to do that, know how to do that. You want to be careful, especially in other cultures if you don't have that kind of background. Okay, so you got to be careful with that. Um, Trying to take the approach if you are anyone that is not sure of where you want to go or not sure of how you want to manage something or what you're sure how you want to approach something or not and you're not and if especially if you're not really good. I mean, you have to be honest with yourself. If you're not really good at something, if you're kind of average, and you've got an American will just challenge you on that. An American will challenge you on that because they're used to challenging people and they're used to actually trying to be the best. They're trying to be the employee of the month. That's just part of the thing. And they're not trying to be the employee of the month for themselves. See, that's the really important to understand thing here. The really hard thing for a lot of Europeans I've seen, and actually Asians too, is a lot of Americans are not trying to be the employee for themselves. See, this is a complete false interpretation. What the Americans are trying to do often is be the employee of the month so they can be the examples for somebody else to actually compete to actually get the same thing. So they can be better too. The Americans are doing this so that they can help others be better. That's a kind of a hard, it's actually a collective thing without it being collective. It's being interpreted as a personal thing, but it's not always a personal thing. It's a thing that they have learned from the Americans have learned from the childhood to push for others to actually push up and actually want to become the next person that's the example. And I've seen a lot of pure Europeans struggle with this, understanding this, really struggle with it. That's why I'm making this movie, or this video series, because I've had to explain this all the time because I'm kind of that way, right? And I have to explain constantly. I'm not trying to be this because it's for me. In fact, some of the times I don't really care. I don't really care about it. So I don't really care about I don't care about the being the person on the spot. It's just that it happens because I might be good at several things and lots of things. And because I believe that I'm good at several things and I do learn quickly, I can become good at several things. And then if I'm good at several things, I have no problem actually making the things shine so we can actually get more people and get more teams and get more people and get more resources and get more funding. Whereas that's how we are Americans are we're brought up with that concept. A lot of Europeans are not, or others. Others. I can tell you lots of others too. And I'm not saying that's bad, because I think that other cultures have a lot of good values, a lot of great values. I have learned a lot from my Chinese Taiwan colleagues. I've learned a lot from my German colleagues. Tons of lots of good things from my German colleagues. They've hopefully learned from me, maybe not. I don't know, um, I've learned a lot from my French friends and colleagues. Uh, um, I've learned a ton of things that have helped me adapt and to uh, kind of navigate through different cultures. I've got a lot of Caribbean friends and a lot of Caribbean colleagues. I got a lot of African friends, and I mean, I've had African friends from different places, Africa for plus 30 plus years, even from my schools, university studies. So it's always been a very rich in spirits, but it's always interculturally complex, and uh, and it gets really exciting. Um, where in one of my other videos, I did something on in 2012. I'm trying to think here. Was my 2012? I think in the Prozz, PROZZ .com. There was one on working in fast-paced, rapid, multicultural, fast-paced environments. And I did a kind of a conference talk on that and the challenges of that multicultural, complex, um, fast-paced environments, because that can be really challenging, um, and that's challenging in all kinds of places. And that can I've seen this in work. I've seen this in NGOs. I've seen this in crowdsourcing. Okay, I have seen this in all kinds of uh, nonprofit associations, um, all kinds of stuff. And when it's multicultural, it gets the more cultures you add to it, the more interesting it gets. Let's say it that way. Okay, um, the more challenging it gets, because you have to deal with so many different. I think I'm involved in a nonprofit association that we recently said we have 19 different ethnic groups, if you want to call these ethnicities. 19, so about 20ish. Okay, that's a lot, and that gets really complicated um, for a nonprofit association. Okay, that's doing a lot of things together, a lot of activities at work. Well, it's 100,000 employees. I mean, they're all over. But I mean, the people that I regularly work with, yeah, at least 10 different countries, which means at least, I mean, regularly, at least, and that's been pretty much all of my career. It's been regular working with between 5 to 10 different cultures at one time, all the time for 30 years, at least, at least, maybe sometimes more. I'm just kind of averaging it out. So I've very seldomly worked with one culture. Well, because I speak English, that just automatically puts me into the position where that's my meal ticket. Speaking English and being a native speaker and being able to speak other languages is my meal ticket. And actually, because I can learn topics really quickly, it helps too. Really, really, I'm an information sponge, so I learn it quickly and I can communicate quickly. So that really helps to be able to be put into the kind of the international thing and not be just limited to only a national scope of one language and one topic. So and I like learning new things too. A lot of everybody likes. A lot of people don't like learning new things, and not all Americans like new things. But when you get an American that likes to learn new things, boy, you're gonna have a challenge, because that person's gonna just like, wow, they're gonna have fun. They're gonna turn things into fun all the time, and to be able to learn it. Whereas a lot of people, I've known a lot of people that just want to stick to their thing and they don't want to do anything else, and they will refuse anything else they want to do, and so that can limit them in what they can do. And when you don't have anything to offer them, you're kind of stuck, right? So and 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 uh, and Americans can be really good at startups. I mean, look at it. Americans started up the idea of startups, right? I mean, I'm saying that. It's probably not true, but Americans are really good at startups, really good at entrepreneurship, small companies, startups. They're just into creating startups and having no problem doing it. Whereas I know a lot of people that just freaked out with having to do a startup because they have to. They don't have a choice. Or working in a startup or a small company after working in a big company, they are just not able. I mean, they're wondering if they can survive. Like I've told some people, hey, you would never survive actually 2 months or 3 months in a startup. They would fire you. So, and I've been honest, um, because it doesn't include a certain type of skill set and a certain type of ability and mentality to be able to do that. And not everybody's good at it. They've only worked in big companies, or big organizations, big institutions, whatever we want to call these things. So this whole being the best attitude, which is not always good. I'm saying it's not always good. It can actually be a problem. In fact, it can sometimes be toxic. And I'll say it can be toxic in both ways. I was actually on a conf call about toxicity. Um, that's a hard word to say. Toxicity. Ooh, that's a hard word to say. Being toxic. Okay. In relationships and stuff. I was actually on a conf call on that. 'Cause that was an interesting topic, and it applied to jobs and stuff. And the thing of being toxic, it's all kind of a whole thing of being toxic. It's kind of the buzzword people saying, but they're in always meaning about relationships between two people, a couple, or some kind of intimate relationship. But it can actually apply to all kinds of other things. I mean, it doesn't have to be an intimate relationship. It can be a work relationship. It can be a business relationship. It can be whatever. But the aspect of being toxic, something can be toxic because of the chemistry between a few people that might not happen if it's a different person that's in, but because of the chemistry that might not be aligning between people, of all these things we're talking about here, of feeling you're good at a thing or you're really good at something, and other people not being able to acknowledge that and do it, and to position you to be able to do good. And if they don't position you to do good, then it'll actually be bad for a person that actually likes to do things a lot. I mean, this can actually this can turn into a toxic thing, um, because it's just the wrong match. It's the whole thing of like we always talk about. Does I don't have the pair of gloves here. I think I put my hand on, or I'm not going to take my shoe off here in front of you. Okay, so I'm going to use my phone as an example. When you get this phone here, you got to make sure that when you buy the case for the phone, that you get a case that is, the phone fits into the case, right? So it fits. And if you don't have something where it fits together, and it's a constant trying to force to try to get to work, it can turn bad. So, and if it's repetitive and all the time, if it's constantly going on, that can actually not go good at all, and it can become toxic for both sides. And so the goal is to avoid that toxic nature or that toxic revelation happening. And that's why the whole being the best, you got to be careful. And this can be, you're going to have some people that are kind of outside of their cultural norm. I do know some French people that are very bold and very, who are kind of different, and they don't fit into things either, because they're more like Americans or more like something else. Or I know Germans that say more. I know Germans that have actually moved to the States, and they do really well in the States, but they have trouble going back to Germany because they just can't handle it. I knew French people that actually went to America, and they hate come back to France because they just say it's just like it's a whole pessimistic thing. Um, and and I've actually had that thing where I've come from America, lived in France for 30-ish years, and every time I go back to the States, I say, boy, I can't live back here anymore. So I mean, it can be it's really interesting. Um, but here are just a few examples to kind of help. The goal here is not to be exhaustive of the full list of things that what being the best is. It's trying to give some examples, a bunch of anecdotes, to help understand how some Americans, or many Americans, or a certain amount of Americans who tend to maybe be visibly successful, how they function, how they do it, and to how to adapt to them if you've got them, if you're working with them, or if you're forced to work with them, because you might have to do it, and how you're going to have to adjust to that, because you'll be stuck with them if they're with you, and the problem is that what happen is, if you're forced to work together and their goal is to make the thing successful, and your goal is to kind of just like, well, kind of get by, oh, you're going to have all kinds of conflict. It'll come up. and and all comes out as who has more weight in the decision, or how long either of the parties or the different parties can actually stay in it, or how fast some of them can get out. And I will say that the Americans who are kind of this, I don't want to say being the best all the time, but it's being success, having results, having results. I'm trying to find this thing that I had to say. It's results oriented kind of behavior, results oriented behavior. This ends up in being the best. And if the Americans are in it with things that people are not trying to be that way, the Americans try to get out as fast as they can because they want to bail. They want to bail the ship because they'll just see this as like this is a waste of time, and they'll have this as a kind of thing is that this should not, this is not going to go anywhere. So it's yeah, go ahead and think about it, figure it out, make it work for you, and address this when you can, and don't always perceive those Americans that are talking about what they did and stuff is actually negative, because they're trying to probably explain to you how to avoid things that how to avoid going through the same thing they've already done it before, or how they've been successful in something, and they don't want you to go into relive a bad experience. They might actually be doing this for you. But someone from a European culture or Asian culture or African culture might not see it that way. They might see it as just like, well, that person is just trying to be the hot in spotlight, which just might not be true. And and this whole thing too of the whole thing of labeling Trump as a narcissist and all that. I've thought about that whole thing, and a lot of people there are people HD, or what do you call it? ADHD? I can't remember what you call this thing. I remember what the word thing is. They're lots of energy, lots of stuff, and putting at it, and they're really good at doing stuff, or they have no problem taking challenge and all that. Or people that are really successful in some things, and that he's just one of them. But he's the one that's risen to the top of the political cycle and political kind of structure. Whereas he didn't even come from it. Hey, look, he came. He wasn't a politician. He came. See, he believes he can get up to be the politician. He did it. He believed he could do it. See, so another example. He believed he could be the best, and he believed he could be the best as the president too. I mean, and he showed that he could do it. I'm not saying he did it. I'm not saying that, and I'm not saying he was the best president. Okay, I'm not saying that, but he rose up to the top of being the president, and he believed he could do it, and others believed he could too because he convinced them that he could do it, and he actually did it for 4 years. Now, whether or not he convinced everybody at the end is a whole other thing. Okay, but I'm saying how many people believe they can become president and actually do it? Okay, that's something to think about. And what was his attitude in getting to that point? And what was his behavior in getting to the point? He's always been the same. He's always been the same kind of attitude. And yeah, he's always been narcissistic kind of thing. But hey, you know what? It worked. He got up there. And he had that kind of thing where he was always on stage all the time. TV talk show host. He got to be president. Hey, Ronald Reagan, actor, got to be president. But then agricultural peanut grower, I got to be president too. So this Jimmy Carter. I mean, there are different people, and then Obama, lawyer, and wife lawyer. I mean, yeah, different people can rise up and do it. And so this whole thing of, but there are many people. I mean, how many people? And I have actually a cousin. I have a cousin who is one of my models, and the models I mentioned. He was running for president of the United States. Not one of the top ones, but hey, was running for president. He dared to do it, and he was an independent runner. I mean, hey, yeah, that was one of my models I modeled, and I've got models that I've other ones I've modeled that they have been come to a point where they're really good in what they do, and I've tried to follow them what they do, and I've been able to replicate that and do it because I've just followed that specific model. So this is that being able, the attitude and the behavior are things that will get you to that point. Not having it, well, you just won't get there because you're not trying. And I'm not saying it's always good, because again, I'm saying that you can have the things that are you can have the things that are the different cultures and stuff. If they're not again lining up, if they're not matching up here between the phone, if they're not matching up to that, doesn't fit, it can become it can turn into a toxic situation. That's where you want to avoid as much as you can. That's the challenge. Okay, um, so I hope this kind of video helps a little bit. It's helped me, and thinking about these things, and thinking over it. It's been a few decades of kind of going through it and learning it and learning different cultures. It's actually been good. But hopefully it helps you if you are struggling with trying to figure out how Americans are in this thing and this kind of attitude that you see. You gotta analyze it deeper, because you might not. You need to analyze it more deeply. I'm sorry, but we say that. That's the way to say it. I'm an linguist. I'm an educated linguist, and I said you gotta analyze deeper. I don't care. That's just hey. It's linguistically comes out. It's linguistically appropriate. Might be considered as grammatically correct, but it's linguistically appropriate. So that's what it is. So, um, but yeah, this is. Go ahead and look and consider those things as you're going through difficult situations, because these things might help you figure out where you're not aligned, and that you can actually work on how to understand the other person. Because a lot of these things are about working out how to understand the other person. And sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's good, I will say, to be able to come to a point where you say it's not possible to work together long term. It's okay. It's actually okay. But some people see that as a failure. That's what's the important thing is to see is that you shouldn't be able to say this is a failure. Now, unfortunately, this does happen in marriage and stuff too. And I don't want to go into that whole thing there, because that gets into a lot of religious stuff too, and that can get kind of complicated. But the whole thing of it's okay to be able to get to a point where you're able to in an arbitration or mediation situation. And I've seen a few of those, been involved in those, and actually had to come in, and actually after the mediation had already happened, it was going successful. I just say, hey, look, just have to realize that you might not have to, it might not work, and so it's okay. And people just have a hard time accepting that it can't actually work, and sometimes it happens that way. So sometimes you just have to say, it's not possible, because the different sides are not able to actually work out and actually adjust to the different parameters and things that they need to be able to, and the variables that they need to be able to work together long term. I mean, unfortunately, too bad. It's just unfortunate. But if you can, the goal is to be able to do that. And the goal is to be able to get the skills to be able to do that, or actually work on it to be able to do that, if you can. But it takes energy. It takes will. Really takes willpower, and it takes desire to actually do this. But if it doesn't work for both sides, then bam, or three sides or four sides, whatever, then you're gonna run into some real struggles. So that's hopefully something to think about. I mean, this is deep psychological stuff here. This is not, kind of just surface level ice cream, yogurt, cool tasting strawberry something. Kind of like the I bought my kids a Happy Meal the other day or something. It's like a drink, it's just quick and easy and all kinds. It's Some of these things are not easy, and so hopefully you can think about it, deal with it, find out how you can go with it, and really address it in whatever way you need to, but not to judge it too much to the point of saying they're wrong, because sometimes it's not them being wrong. It's not that people are wrong here. It's that they're in the wrong chemistry of a situation where you might take someone else and put it in the same situation, and it would work out. It's just kind of a chemistry thing, and a lot of these things it really helps to kind of do a Myers-Briggs assessment and all that kind of stuff, of personality tests and all that kind of stuff, and look at those things. And sometimes you have to go in that detail, because you can kind of figure out what the people are there. You can just do a quick analysis, figure out what kind of personality types they are, and temperaments and character, and that's really actually easy to figure out with you don't need a PhD and do any rocket science kind of stuff to figure this one out, but it does help sometimes. So that's it for that chapter. And we're going on to another chapter. Here we go.